Closnan the Barbarian. Clothes but not forgotten. Ooh, they're nice clothes. Today, we're going to be talking about closing. But before we talk about that, I want to welcome you. Yes, you, sat there in your car, wondering how you're going to get that deal over the line. I want to welcome you to another episode of Trench Tips. My name's Zach Thompson, and this is my esteemed co-host, the returning new father and openly gay podcast host. It's Mr. Jack Frimston. Jack, how are you?
I'm very well. Did I ever tell you about the time that I had an interview for an account management role, and they said, if you were a wrestler, what would your finishing move be? And I said, it'd be the clothesline, and I just go around closing everything.
Wow.
Didn't get the job.
Well, I don't blame you. Let me ask you a question, right, before we want to talk about closing. We want to give the people some tips on closing. But let me ask you a question. Your opinion of closing when you first got into sales, what did you think closing was and how do you view it?
It's got to be hard. It's got to be fast. It's got to be twisting someone's hand behind their back and making sure that they have no opportunity to say no. The Wolf of Wall Street is in the building.
Yes, exactly. I remember an early software sales job that I had, the bit when they said, I don't know if I'm interested, you'll have to persuade me. I would stand up in my chair, out of my chair, in my,
on my chair, rip my shirt off.
But I stopped wandering around really in what I thought was just persuasion mode. It'd be really hard close, anything to kind of get it over the line, very typical sales strategy. And it's only now, when our job is booking meetings for people and we're based on those meetings showing up and attending, that I realise that doesn't work. And when you do that, people just don't show up. So if we're looking at closing, when do you think is the right time to do it? What are we looking for to even start that closing process?
The thing that you're looking for, Mr. Thompson, is emotion. Is there some emotion?
It's just emotion. Exactly. You're looking for that emotional rant. And how do you know you're there? Well, people will say things, they'll go on a big monologue and it will have words in it like, we need to do something about this. We've been looking at this for a little while. This has been frustrating me for X amount of time. I know we need to do something because of X. We're starting to look at this movie, and there'll be all this frustration. But what you're looking to do with someone is get them on the roller coaster, on the emotional roller coaster. And it's your job, as it goes up, it's going up, it's going to drop, it's going to come back down to not very emotional. You need to close them at the top of that emotional roller coaster. So what we're looking for is when they hit the top of that emotional rant. I've got this guy talking to me about pain, about need. I've got to do something. They sound so motivated. Then I'm going to hit them with my starting closing framework. Closing only works when someone's emotional, and it only works when they've had to defend that emotion a little bit. So someone's emotional, Jack. They've listed off to you, and I'll play this out with you, right? Look, we just haven't really recovered properly since COVID. I'd love to get back to the glory days that we were in from a new business perspective. I just can't seem to get enough meetings in the diary with the right types of people, constantly chasing our tail around. It is quite frustrating. There's been a few dark days along the way. So, yeah, it's something that I need to fix. It's something that's always on my mind. What would you do next?
I'd want to ask a tricky question, something a bit hard-hitting, and I'm probably going to preface that tricky question by letting them know or asking for permission to ask that tricky question. So, yeah, okay. Well, Zach, listen, can I ask a bit of a direct question?
Yeah.
Are you sure? I've just cold called you. I'm not in the game of upsetting people.
Ask me.
I'm going to ask a big open question When I say open, I mean closed. I'm going to ask a big closed question that's going to get them emotional. And I'm going to say something like, have you given up?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, sometimes there's one step before that, before you go with the big direct ask. Because sometimes emotional rants, they don't always have clarity, right? And if you're thinking as the therapist, you want this person to feel heard first before you jump in. So a great line before this, you often hear people say, have you tried anything to fix this? Right? So that might be the one, but there's a tendency there to go down a very systems route. I don't want someone to be thinking too logically at this point. So give me an emotional rant. It's a bit all over the place. And to give it a bit of clarity, I might just lower the voice, go into that late night DJ voice. Say, how long have you felt like this for? And when I say that, they're going to say, as long as the business has been around, or they're going to give real clarity. COVID's a great example. Cost of living's another great example. People will give real clarity to how long this problem's been on the mind for. Once we get that clarity there, so that like real, this is a real problem. It's not just a rant. I've not just caught them at a bad time once I've asked that question. Then Jack's point there of the direct question, which might be, have you given up? Again, then I'm going to defend why I haven't given up. At this point now, I've got enough problem, it's definitely a problem, and I've got enough motivation, there's definitely clear motivation to go for a close. And Jack, what do you notice in, when you hear your team or you're on the phone yourself, if you do all the work up front and find out those two things, what does the close typically feel like?
It feels like they close themselves. It feels like they're saying, okay, what can we do? That's typically the issue, isn't it? When you get to a position where it feels like you're trying to argue to get some time in the diary, something's gone wrong. There's no emotion. You might have got a problem, but big deal. Like a problem isn't going to book a meeting.
Excuse me, I was coughing. I didn't want to cough.
It's okay, thanks.
Absolutely. Right, so that's what we're going to do. So the framework, just to go back on this, emotional rant. We've started on I've got them emotional. They're ranting now. They're telling me, they're sharing. A bit of clarity. How long you felt like this for? The direct question. Have you given up? Maybe another example of a direct question. I'm guessing even if there was something that could fix this, you've completely closed your mind off to other opportunities.
No.
Yeah, so there's...
Sorry,
exactly. There's loads of different ways. No,
I was just being a prospect.
Loads of different ways. And then when I get that, you've defended your stance. Now I can go for a few different closes.
What's your favourite?
And the simplest one, the one I really like, is have you got your diary there?
Assumptive.
So people, when you do that pushback of have you given up, people don't just go no. They go no, and then they tell you why they haven't given up. And they really say it all. They say all the reasons why they haven't given up and they need to fix something, etc., etc. And they give you all the reasons. So there's no need to go into a big monologue. You can just say, okay, well, have you got your diary there?
Salespeople overcomplicate it, and when they're going for that close, they want to give you 101 reasons why you're making the right decision, and really like defend that it's going to be worth it, and it'll be amazing, and we're going to show you how we do this. And all the biases are starting to kick in at that point.
And the other thing that I want to mention on the close, and this is for maybe my software sellers out there, if you're selling software and on the call, the prospect has used certain words that your software does, but you call it something else, use their words, not yours. So when you come for that close, you might have done the pushback, and then you might say, well, look, if I had something that did X, Y, and Z that you've just told me about during this call, would it be ridiculous to put some time aside? And have a look?
I love ridiculous. Voss it up.
Voss it up. And I think that's the last point around the ask should have a negative frame. So, Jack, what does that mean?
So I don't want to say, would you be able to? Can we? I want you to, when I ask you the question, I want it to feel like you're answering it in the right way. So it might look like, is there any reason why we couldn't? Would it be impossible to, and you're going to go, no, it wouldn't be impossible. No, there's no reason why not. And then you'd probably follow up simply with, no, there's no reason why we couldn't do that. Okay, cool. Have you got your diary there?
Yeah, exactly. Feels like a ridiculous idea too. Exactly. The room to say no that Chris Voss talks about makes a conversation feel like a very safe place. People can tell when they're being forced into something. There's a bias called reactance. Someone feels like I'm being persuaded and they push back and do the total opposite of what you say.
Don't be pushy. Don't be needy. If you're struggling to close, we used to play a game with some of the team that if you don't feel like they're going to agree to a meeting, you can't even ask. If you've not got to that point where there's some emotion, where you feel like they're actually motivated to do something about this, you can't even bring it up. Because if it's a case of just taking the same script and saying like, when would be a good time to sit in your diary? Yeah, you'll book some meetings, but they aren't people that are necessarily motivated to solve the problem or people that are going to show up. So when people are salespeople are like, oh, I booked 32 meetings this month, but actually only 4 attended. Well, what's the point? Like that's not a numbers game. Think about how you can actually get more people to show up, work on a better close, get that motivation.
Exactly. Last honourable mentions. Don't talk about time specifically. Can I put 15 minutes in your diary? When could we put in half an hour? When could we put in an hour discovery call? Don't use sales terms or talk about the time specifically.
Don't talk about
Why not?
well, time. It's just it brings it back down to reality. Brings it crashing back down. Oh, can we just get a quick 30 minutes in your diary? Like it's just like is there any reason why we couldn't sit down and explore this further? You don't need to bring up the aspect of time. You're in this emotional conversation. Don't make it logical. I would also say we were talking about this, but like I'm going to sit you down with my sales manager, my AE, my sales director.
Yeah.
They don't care. They're emotional. They want to solve a problem. I don't care. If I'm on the phone to a receptionist saying, yeah, I'm going to blah, 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 like it doesn't matter. Like as long as I'm being seen, that's all I care about. I don't care if it's Dr. Bob and he's got 2 degrees. Who,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Just get me in.
Yeah. Exactly. And then the only other one within that is demo. People don't hear the word demo and think that sounds absolutely great. They think that sounds long and boring and like someone talking at me. So don't use the word demo. The thing that you're getting to, would it be ridiculous to put some time aside? Would it be outrageous to put some time in the diary? That's what you're looking for. So there it is, some tips on closing. I hope that helps. And remember, if you can't close a door, don't close